Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us. Joining us now again, we once again have State Representative Brandt Smith is in studio with us. Brandt, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Paul. Spent a couple of days down at the Capitol. Sat in on that hearing yesterday when the discussions on carrying guns in the state of Arkansas came up, and it was a very interesting discussion that muddied the waters once again.
Wow.
So
The just real quick. So the resolution clarifying Arkansas's gun laws, are they just kind of ignoring it?
well, I don't think they want to admit that the legislature makes the laws, and that even though we tried to clarify what the law actually is, they don't accept it. And at one point, the ASP, Colonel Brandt, and the attorney for the ASP were even told point blank, look, your job is to enforce the law. We make the laws. And I don't think that's set very well, but, to their credit, they handled every question to the best of their ability, but they were not going to give an inch.
Wow. Well, I'm going to go back and listen to the entire thing, and maybe we'll get some of the...
Be interesting for you.
So I want you to start from the beginning. You got contacted by a constituent,
right,
about the Arkansas School for Math and Science down in Hot Springs.
Right,
So tell us about
ASMSA down in Hot Springs. It's they just recently celebrated in May their 25th anniversary. Just so people know, the reason I'm involved with finding out really what's going on at that school was I've got constituents here in Jonesboro that reached out to me very upset at the way their child was being bullied, treated, ostracized, and a lot of that centered, it doesn't have anything to do with academics because it's a very strong academic school. But when a student wants to be involved in student government, all the activities, plus has a life of their own where they may run, exercise, work out, and then that student is considered to have some kind of a mental deficiency because they're so energetic, it causes parents to wonder what's going on with my child at this school.
So you're saying that there was a constituent, they have our kid down there, and there was some sort of disciplinary action taken for active lifestyle. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because she eats healthy. She is participatory in so many, if not all of the activities, wanted to be involved in student government activities. And because of some of the pushback that she received, she was even told, you'll never take part in anything to be elected down here at the school.
Okay.
So they were trying to marginalize her for just being
being successful?
Yes. Because evidently it focuses back on the privilege walk.
Okay, stop. What's a privilege walk? I don't know what this is.
Paul, come on.
Okay.
Aren't you privileged? You're a white male.
Okay, so
I'm a white male. I'm privileged just because of my race. But
so is that an official thing? A privilege walk?
It is an exercise that I've been informed that when juniors enter the school during their orientation period, they go through what is called a privilege walk. And there's a list of questions. They line all the students up, new incoming students, and they will say, if you come from a family where you have a mother and father cohabitating, your home, take a step forward. If you're from a single parent home, take a step back. If you've got more than 50 books in your home, reading books, whatever, take a step forward. If you don't have books like that, take a step back. So by the end of the exercise, they have completely separated
the haves and the have-nots.
The haves, the have-nots, those with privilege and those that do not. I think one of the questions dealt with, does your family have personal transportation, more than one car? take a step forward.
And the officials at the school are the ones asking these questions, or is this something that the students
I
initiate?
think this was an exercise conducted by Res Life because it is a dormitory style
Right. They go
high
to live
school.
there. They go
Right.
to live there.
And so I attended. This family here in Jonesboro asked me to go down and sit in on the visitors board, kind of like a school board meeting, an update on what's happening at the school. And after I attended a committee meeting or two, I believe it was May 6th, I drove on down to Hot Springs, attended that meeting, and the room was packed. It's a small room, but it was packed. Every chair filled with standing room only.
Is that
And-
because there's more parents that have complaints about what's going on?
Well, I didn't know that when I first got there. And, I went around and greeted everybody, shook hands, introduced myself, and I did have my Brandt Smith state representative badge on, so they knew, hey, a legislator's here. When we got to the point in that visitors board meeting where Tim Barnes, the chair, asked for public comments or any new business or, discussion, people lined up to talk. And it was everything from one young man claiming, he was sexually assaulted by a student on campus 3 weeks prior to that board meeting, and nothing was done about it, to faculty members that had been mistreated and fired. There were lawsuits pending with some of these people. Parents stood up and talked about the great education their children got as far as academics go, but that they were literally browbeat down every day. There were individuals who discussed the privilege walk, as I mentioned.
So browbeating because of why?
Well, bullying.
Okay.
I don't know what the motive for that was.
Okay,
Other
okay.
than it kind of spun off from the privilege walk. And I sat there listening to all of this, and it just got worse. But to Mr. Tim Barnes' credit, even though there was a limit set for each person to speak, I think it might have been 5 minutes, people were trying to get their statement made, and he allowed them, even though the alarm sounded, to finish their thought. And so I was really proud of him for
Yeah.
doing that, because I've been in meetings where once you're cut off, you're cut off. And he allowed people to speak completely what was on their mind. And so the center of gravity, and we talk about that, I guess, a lot more in the military, of where the problems are or what the situation is and who's involved, apparently focuses on the director for the ASMSA family down there. And his name is Corey Alderdice. And, he made his presentation, but people they felt like he needed to step up and acknowledge that as director, the buck stops on his desk. And he made claims later that he didn't know about the privilege walk. And I'm thinking, you've got a small school. Joe, what is it, like 250 students max?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if you've got a school with 250 students and they're all top performing academically, with ACTs and SATs, I guess, as far as the high school testing records go. But he said, I didn't know anything about it. And I thought, how can you be the director?
A privilege walk. You didn't know anything about
No.
that?
And
What about the sexual assault?
well,
And what
that-
you say a man got sexually assaulted. So how does
well,
that
an
even work?
adolescent.
An adolescent, yeah.
And the
But a
parent,
boy, so
yes, the parent. Listen, his testimony when he stood up and talked, he was trembling and shaking in front of the whole group that were there to explain what had happened, how he had gone to the administration and let them know. And I always assumed, okay, if something like that happens, these are court mandated reporters. They should have immediately, before they did anything, contacted the local police department,
Right.
filed a report, and then let the police investigate. Evidently, and there may be more of those cases, but they've not been properly handled by the administration. And so it just spun. I don't think it ever spun out of control, because Tim did a great job of letting people speak. I mean, if he had shut people down, there would, I mean, I can only imagine chairs being thrown or
So people
fists
were
being pounded.
These parents were very upset.
Yes.
With what they're hearing from their
And
kids.
some of these parents that were speaking were graduates themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And one family had 2 of their children back in the school, and the mother had been a graduate. One of our legislators has 5 children of constituents in the school. And so, Paul, here's what I mean, I found myself pulled in, and my only point to go was just to represent my constituents.
Did you start investigating this?
We have, and I have, and here's something that I sent out earlier this month. But after that meeting was over, I walked out to head to my pickup truck, and I was swarmed by people wanting to tell me their story of problems. And some of the faculty have even come to me and said, we don't even have an HR program here that addresses grievances. And if we do try to mention a grievance, we are berated and made to think you're about to lose your job. And some of them have down there. But I sent this out to 8 colleagues this month. I'll just read it real quickly. Good morning, colleagues. Please forward this message on to any other legislators you may know who are interested in the ASMSA situation. As mentioned, we need to have a closed-door meeting to determine what needs to happen legislatively next. We need to separate fact from fiction and talk about what we are hearing from our constituents who have children at the school. I'm open to possible dates where we can all be in Little Rock. Please let me know your thoughts. After I sent that out, I started getting comments back. Brandt, we've known about problems at the school for a long time, and they're talking like a year or 2 or 3. But nobody stood up to take it on as a personal mission to get to the bottom of it, find out what corrections can be made, and move the school forward with the integrity that a school of that nature needs to be. So I've got a running thread, as you can see, just comments.
Yeah.
And I've been surprised at some comments that people knew, but they never stood up to just put their hand up and say enough.
Right.
So,
Well, and that's why. I mean, I had a listener of the show contact me and told me some of this, and they specifically mentioned your name too, and said, "Hey, you need to talk to Brandt." And so I think this is an attempt to maybe get some publicity out there about some of the stuff going on.
Well, and that's the reason I'm here, is I want this to be broad enough that if there are concerns or someone has had an issue that was never dealt with, this is their time to do that. And they can send me an email at Brandt, BRANDT .smith@arkansashouse.org. And if necessary, I'll call you back. Otherwise, I'll just take your information and present it before Joint Performance Review. That committee is chaired by Representative Jimmy Gazaway, and we're looking at dates, the calendar now, and a proper date to call us all together and to get those involved at the administrative level. And the difficulty is, and this is kind of what pains me, because at the University of Arkansas level, because ASMSA comes under the umbrella of the University of Arkansas system. And apparently, at the top, they prefer to turn this into a witch hunt and have berated in emails that I have members of the faculty or the Board of Visitors chair, and they're siding without hearing all the facts with the director. And that night at the hearing, or the board meeting, I even went to the director and I said, look, I've been in leadership for years and I've made errors, but if I addressed them quickly and apologized and said, I'm going to make course corrections, we're going to get back on track,
Yes.
people were typically forgiving. And I said, even if there's a grain of sand of truth in any of these allegations, I said, Corey, please do the right thing and deal with it before it gets bigger. And I don't think he accepted that.
Okay, the idea of a walk, what'd you call it? A walk?
Privilege walk.
A privilege walk. Okay, this disturbs me because this is a political. It seems like this is coming from a political ideology of how they wish the world was, of recognizing, and if it's kind of smoke, it's like where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
So if that is undergirding your resident life policy, are there any other progressive concepts that are governing the decision-making process, how they treat students?
There probably is. One of the points that was brought up was several of the students wanted to establish a high school young Republicans type group on campus. They had the right number of kids saying, hey, we want to be on this, we want this at our campus, we've even got a sponsor, and they were denied. And the reports that have kind of come out stated they didn't meet the criteria, they didn't have enough students, they didn't have a sponsor, when in fact they did. They met all of the requirements, so they didn't want
a Republican
group on campus. And I talked to a senator yesterday, and
so it is political.
Well, and she commented to me that she had a nephew attend that school several years ago, and I guess he graduated from there. But while he was there, he got hooked on drugs because there is a drug culture on that campus. And
now Joe's saying, yeah, Joe, our producer in here, you went to this school.
For a little while.
All right, so he's a test. Of course, there's drugs in every high school, but go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
but without parents, I'm sure it's.
Well, and so what happened was she said her nephew got hooked on drugs while he was there, and then when he moved on to university studies, he was found face down I think in his dorm room, dead from an overdose, and it all started back at ASMSA. And so more than likely, you can't weed out all of that garbage.
Correct.
But you can minimize it by good supervision. And on this sexual allegation that this young boy made, his father did reach out to me and say, look, I think my son overreacted. We don't think it was true rape or anything like that. It was just boys being boys. And so I listened to him for probably 35, 40 minutes, and but the fact of the matter is it was never properly handled on campus.
Yeah.
So we need to review the policy of the school, the policies, their handbook, because people are saying no one follows policy here. There were students that were expelled this year that were still allowed to graduate. And so there were some things there's some inconsistencies from policy manual as well as following through. And I mean, if someone is expelled, they need to explain, well, why were these students allowed to graduate?
Yeah.
I've had parents contact me and say, did you know that some of these students self-identify as animals, and they eat out of Tupperware bowls. And so
Wait,
I'm thinking,
what?
I know. So here's the thing, Paul, my constituent's daughter, I would say she is an achiever. She may be an overachiever, but I got her ACT scores yesterday from her parents, a snapshot. She made 34 on everything.
Wow.
And so they were considering her mentally ill, or she could,
The administration of the school
hurt herself. They wanted her to go to counseling. They wanted her to be separated from the other students, and
so they're
and punished.
punishing the successful, and then all this other but it's okay to identify as an animal. I mean, the person that wants to be an animal needs to be in therapy. I'm so glad I'm not in high school anymore, by the way, because if this kind of stuff was going on anywhere near me,
in your earlier segment about gender and sex issues,
yeah.
I was thinking, I was living in Creede, Colorado in the late 70s working for Homestake Mining Company. I hadn't seen a real girl in like 2 years, and the day my future wife showed up as a summer missionary out of Stephen F. Austin State University in her Baptist Student Union, I looked at her and I said, I'm going to marry that girl, because I hadn't seen a girl in 2 years. I didn't have any kind of gender identity conflict in my mind at all. That's a real girl. And, I've told you this story, but she wasn't allowed to date because she was on a mission. So the next question was, well, is there a rule about getting engaged? And she said no. And I said, would you marry me? And she said yes. And so that's been 38 years ago.
That's great. We're just going to skip the dating. We'll skip the dating and go right to the marriage. State Representative Brandt Smith, thank you. Keep me posted. Continue investigating this. Let me know.
One last comment, if I can,
Yes,
real
sir.
quick. I have a lot of respect for the teachers down there at the school who want to do the right thing. And they've reached out to me, and they're just asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
Parents are asking for help, students. And I was willing to not move forward with any of this until after their graduation. And now, we were delayed a little bit because of the murder of Linda Collins.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're moving forward. And I'd like to ask, your listeners, remember, your legislators that are dealing with this problem, we want to make it better for our state.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to disparage University of Arkansas in any way, but they're so far north, they can't see everything.
Yeah, got to get to the bottom of it. State Representative Brandt Smith, we appreciate it. If you have any information about any of your experiences down at the Arkansas School for Math and Science, reach out to State Representative Brandt Smith. Folks, we got to take a break. Wrapping up the show. Back in a minute.
The poise, the quick wit,
Yeah.
all of those things that we've probably never seen to the degree that we've seen it with her. And she really kind of, I think, has set the standard for what any White House spokesperson would aspire to. And so that's going to be a loss for the Trump administration, but this is a naturally occurring phenomenon in that the burnout for that type of job, quite frankly, I'm surprised she stayed as long as she did because of the 24/7. You're on call all the time. She's got small children at home. She's got a husband, and she's a family woman. And this was a major sacrifice on her part to be able to do it, and she did it very well. In fact, maybe better than anybody ever has.
I think you're right about that. Definitely a contender. Congressman Rick Crawford, it's always great to have you on, and I thank you for your candor and keeping us informed here back home, and just keep going. We got to get to the truth. I know you're pursuing it. I know it's tough with Adam Schiff, now the head of
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the show. I want to give a special thanks to State Representative Brandt Smith for standing up and letting us know everything that's going on down there. Also, story I didn't get to today, but if you want to check it out, you can. This Zero Hedge article, quote, bums get a job. Instagram influencer couple. Now, influencers make a lot of money, right? They're paid to influence and, talk about products and stuff like this because they got so many followers. They have so many, a large reach. Check that out. Influencer couple slammed after begging for an $11,000 vacation. They wanted a GoFundMe for $11,000. Now it's time for your meme of the day. Meme of the day. From Quentin Tarantino's film, The Inglorious B Word, I guess. Not the B-I word. It's epic conservative memes. Brad Pitt, where when he says, we're in the business of killing Nazis, and boys, business is good. But in this case, it's we're in the business of making liberals cry, and boy, business is a booming. Check it out. We'll tweet it out, the Twitter handle at Conduit News, as well as Facebook.com/Conduit News. Also subscribe to us on YouTube. Click the little bell to receive notifications. Arkansas, have a great day. Be safe.